Hi, welcome into The Current, where we explore trends in business, marketing, and culture. And due to what's going on right now in our country and our culture, we've decided to focus our energy on amplifying the voices of people of color in our community so we can learn from them and support the pursuit of social justice and equality here in America. Really happy to be able to welcome back our guest today, Marshall Thomas, aka DJ Mars, originally from Springfield, Massachusetts, but a resident of Atlanta since 1991. Mars, thanks a lot for joining us again. Mars was our first guest about 5 weeks ago on Into the Current, helped us launch this podcast, and a lot's changed since then, huh, Mars?
Yep, a heck of a lot has changed.
Yeah, just really just want to, have a real conversation about what's going on in our country and our culture, and let's just start there. And how are you feeling about what's been going on the last several weeks?
Man, I feel like, I know this is going to sound cliche-ish, but I feel like we're going down a darker path today than yesterday. There's some political activity that's waking up some things that really need to remain dormant. And I don't know where we're going to be tomorrow, because again, I feel like today was worse than yesterday. So who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? But it's not a good feeling. From the activity with the police and the community, the activity with our president and him siding with those who are on the opposite side of the racial justice spectrum. I have no idea where we're going, but it just doesn't seem good.
Yeah, it seems really chaotic. Do you feel like, and I hear what you're saying, do you feel like there might be some positive things going on here? And if so, what are those things?
The positive things that I see a group of people who cross, racial lines all at the same time. They're saying, I'm sick of it. And the it today is they are sick of the authority that police have over your physical body, right? So you have these cases. You have the Breonna Taylor case. Then you have the Floyd case. And then you have the case of the 75-year-old white gentleman who was pushed to the ground. 2 out of the 3 caught on camera. And the callousness of the police when they commit these, I call them crimes, when they commit these crimes, I think across the globe, because now the protests are spanning across the globe, everywhere from Australia to Atlanta and everywhere in between. I think people are saying, yo, I'm tired of it. We're not saying we're tired of the police. We need it. You need it. Something happens in your home and there's an assailant in your home, you need to call the police. So we're not tired of the police. We're tired of the authority that they have over your body when they are there at a situation. That's what people are tired of. So to answer your question more directly, the good thing is people are coming together to say, look, man, I'm sick of this. And this is what I'm sick of. And if we don't fix this, we're going to continue to have these type problems, the unrest, the protesting, and then even so, the rioting. I think people are just physically tired.
Now, you were originally from Springfield, Massachusetts, so the Northeast, and you've been down here in Atlanta for almost 30 years, right?
Yeah.
Just shy of 30 years. Growing up, being a young kid and having your youth in outside of Boston, being an older, maturing down here, going to college. Tell us about some of the experiences you may have faced as a black man in those 2 environments, from a position of, being treated unfairly or experiencing racism. Are there a couple experiences you can share with us there?
The first time I've ever experienced my personal bout with racism, I was in like the 1st grade, and I remember I was walking from my house to a swimming pool, and I was by myself. I don't know why I was by myself, and I'm walking, and it's like 3 white kids. I didn't know who they were. They were in my neighborhood, but I didn't know who they were. It was like 2 girls and a guy. One of them was a couple years older The other two looked like they were my age. And I'm walking through, and this is in my neighborhood where I live, so I had every right to be there. I'm walking through, one of them called me a nigga. And I'm like I just said to myself, like, why would they do that? I'm bothering nobody, mind you. Like it's almost like they spit at me for no reason. And again, I was in the first grade. So this is in Massachusetts, the first grade. That's when I experienced it. Obviously, I knew the difference between, you're white or you're black, but I had never seen that before. And it came at me, and it surprised me again because I'm walking to the swimming pool. The most innocent thing you could be doing as a first grader. It's summertime, it's hot, and here it is. These people who I didn't know, had no interest in them whatsoever, felt like they're going to say the most disrespectful thing to me. So let's throw that word at him. So that was the first time I experienced it. And that was, again, however old you are when you're in first grade, 8, 9, 10 years old or whatever, the very first time that hit me. And I was shocked. I was shocked.
What about, what's been your experience if you've seen a difference between being up north and being down south? I mean, I think there's a general opinion that there's a difference in how people are treated in the north and in the south. Has that been your personal experience?
Well, in the north, racism lives in a couple different ways, right? So in the north, you have people who just want to be with their people, right? So in Springfield growing up, you had the Russian neighborhood, right? Then you had the Vietnamese neighborhood. Then you had the Caribbean neighborhood. And then you had the Jewish neighborhood. And I'm assuming collectively all of those groups wanted to be with their own people. But it didn't seem problematic because for the most part, they got along with the other groups. They just wanted to be with their people. The Italians wanted to be in the Italian neighborhood. When I came down here, the cultural lines were kind of blurred. So I felt like down here, you were either black or you're white. So I couldn't see where the Italian neighborhood was, where the Jewish neighborhood was, where the Jamaican neighborhood was. I couldn't see it down here. So culturally, that was one of the first differences that I saw. Before I saw like an overt act of racism, I just saw there were major differences culturally. Like there wasn't, as I said, there wasn't the typical Korean neighborhood. Like down here, if it's Asian, it's almost like it's a blanket Asian part of the city. But back home, the cultural lines were very clear and whatnot.
I think Atlanta has a reputation generally, again, and this is why we want to talk here and kind of break down some generalities. I think Atlanta has a general reputation as being a pretty progressive city from a racial and a social standpoint. But we know and we've seen even that that's not necessarily the case. What's been your experience in the city of Atlanta, and what are your feelings about being a resident of Atlanta for almost 30 years and how people get along down here from a racial standpoint?
I feel like Atlanta's progressive. Part of the progression is the influx of people from all over the place, right? So let's say the traditional Southerner, his attitude is a little different because he lives in a city where there's people from Chicago, LA, London, Japan, New York, Texas, Wyoming, Seattle, all in this city. So the melting pot kind of changes what that person would have been had Atlanta just remained just like Atlanta and whatnot. So because it's a melting pot, the evidence of the racial attitude is kind of hidden. So, I said the evidence. In certain neighborhoods, like the neighborhood that I live in, I live near Grant Park, and everybody, it's a real artsy kind of neighborhood. So that type of person, I don't care what color you are, you white, black, you Asian, Latino, they're a little bit more liberal. Now, when you go north and you're in the Buckhead area, anywhere north of 17th Street, that energy is a little different. I feel like they want that neighborhood for them. You're not supposed to be up here. So I don't go up there unless I have to. I don't spend my money there. I'm not hanging out there because I just don't feel like they want me there. They may not have an issue with Marshall Thomas, but I don't think they want black people in their neighborhood. But downtown, the Inman Parks, the Virginia Highlands, the Grant Park area, that's generally my section. I feel like those people are a little bit more liberal, maybe because they're younger and maybe because they're transplants and whatnot. Who knows? It's just a different type of energy to me.
You said something that I want to ask you more about. You said you don't spend your money in an area where you don't feel like people want you there. We are a communications company. That's our business right now. We want to try to, again, amplify voices. That's what we do. But I think that's an interesting concept, right? When you're talking about change and how to affect change, that's a way that people can affect change, right? They can say, I'm not going to spend money on activities or with companies that don't reflect my values. What would you say to people about that and about how they choose to spend their money and what they're supporting and what that actually means, really?
I mean, it's to me, it makes all the sense in the world to patronize someone that reflects at least the positive side of whatever coin that you're on, right? I'm not saying if I walk into a grocery store on West Wyuka that they have to think exactly like DJ Mars. No, I just feel like they shouldn't think against me. Like their thought process shouldn't hinder whatever it is that I'm working on. So I feel like, there's an old adage, don't spend money where you won't get hired. Like, so that kind of energy is what I use when I go places. I'll be someplace in Buckhead and they'll just look at you crazy. And I'm saying to myself, I'm here to patronize your business. So after a while, you say to yourself, well, maybe whatever that product is that I was purchasing up there, maybe I don't need the product anymore because I'm not going to work my tail off to make this money to come give it to you. And then you look at me like I'm crazy because you don't want me in here. Not that you don't want to sell somebody something, you just don't want me and my people here. So it's kind of time out for that.
What are other ways that people, white people, people of color, black and brown people, conscious people can work to affect change, positive change for social and racial justice in America, in your opinion?
I think one of the things that has to happen is those who are in power, and I don't know how this is going to happen, but what has to happen is they have to look at it as equal, right? Or they have to look at the powerless as a human, right? So it was easy for those cops to push that 75-year-old man down and essentially walk over him without even looking back to see if he was okay, because in the cop's mind, that person, even though he's a 75-year-old white man, that person isn't equivalent to them, right? So whether it's police brutality or just blatant racism, the only cure for that is for those in power to look at the people who are below them power-wise. They have to look at them the same way. Like a cop, let's say a cop in that situation tripped and fell. Would the other cop have just walked over him? No, he would have bent down to pull him up because he looked at that man as his equal. They pushed that 75-year-old man down and then walked over him like he was a dog because they didn't view him as equal to them. So until the mindset of equality is locked in across the globe, it's really not going to go anywhere. Like, we can have a million conversations in the world, but if a cop still feels like whomever he pulls over, whether the person is white, black, Italian, German, Jew, whatever, that person is not equal to them in a human sense, then he's going to treat them like they treated the 75-year-old man. That was a perfect example of the cops' mentality and how they view the citizens of the world. They pushed the man down. The man is bleeding. They walked over him like he was a dog. Like it was like they walked over like you walk over a piece of paper on the ground. They didn't even go back to see if the man was okay. And then you hear them and they're making it seem like it's his fault. Like, so that lack of humanity, until that disappears, we're all in trouble. And that was an example of those in the power structure have just a different view of us on the ground. Total different view. Because they walked over the man like he was a piece of crap. Like, because someone's going to argue that George Floyd, he was a criminal, whatever. This guy was a citizen, and I keep saying his age. He was a 75-year-old man that they cared nothing about. So until that attitude erases, we're going to be stuck here, which means next year we're going to have another situation. The year after that, we have another situation. It's not going to go anywhere.
Well, and I think that, you said next year. So this week here in Georgia, we had a primary election on Tuesday. And I don't know if you voted early or if you got out and voted on Tuesday. I voted on Tuesday. I got out super early, and it still took me a long time, although not nearly as bad as some other people. We've got an election coming up in November. What would you say to people about how important this election is coming up in November, and not just the president, but just all the elected officials that are going to be on the ballot this November?
Well, I kind of looked at it like the election that was held Tuesday on the other day was just as important as the November election, because a lot of it had to do with a bunch of local officers and whatnot. So to affect change in your neighborhood, you have to vote locally, obviously. And what made this important is people were energized. So I'm sure the voting community, the numbers were higher this time around. Let's say versus a local election prior to, because people were riled up. Like we absolutely have to focus on local as well as the national stage too, because you can vote nationally and have whomever you want to be in office that shares the same thought process as you, but then locally, there's a bunch of politicians who are on the flip side of that coin, and then you're stuck because you can't get anything done locally. If the local authorities in Brunswick, Georgia, were a little bit more liberal, the Ahmaud Arbery situation may not be in the place that it is now. But because you have a bunch of people in office, from the DA to the sheriffs and whatnot, who didn't view that man's life as worthy, that situation was able to grow and blow up to the point that it's at now. So I feel like voting locally, super important. Voting nationally, equally as important.
Also, thank you. I want to also ask you about, in the past probably 2 weeks or so, we've all seen a lot of businesses coming out and really taking a stand, taking a position, making their position known, a lot on the side of social, racial justice and equality. I think some that are being quiet are also making a decision, right? Because whether you say something or you don't say something, how do you feel? Do you feel like a lot of these companies are being opportunistic, or do you feel that they're being sincere in putting these statements out? How do you feel as a Black man and as a consumer to see these messages from these companies, big companies?
I feel like they're being opportunistic, like, to be honest. So this is how you show me that you're putting your money where your mouth is. When I walk into the lifestyle department of whatever the company is, I need for the lifestyle department to almost look like a Benetton ad. And I'm being funny when I say that. The Benetton ads, everybody was in it. Asian, Latino, Black, white, male, female, short, dark, fat, whatever. I need for your head office to look like that. Like, because I get it, the flowery words on Instagram sound great, the posts sound great, but if your office doesn't reflect the energy that you're projecting online, then those words mean nothing to me. So like I believe it when I walk into a office and it looks like everybody is represented there because everybody is being affected by what we're going through right now. So talk that talk and make sure everybody has a representation in that boardroom.
How often do you see that in your life in business? Now you travel a lot. You work in the music industry. You work with some big brands. Is that something that you see, or you don't see that people of color being represented?
I don't see it. I don't see it. Not as well as I should. I'll give you an example. I won't name the brand, but I remember having a meeting with the lifestyle department, and I remember saying to myself, "Nobody in here looks like they're part of the lifestyle. Like nobody. Like they wouldn't be a part of the culture if they didn't work for this brand. Nobody in that meeting. Like, and I'm not saying you got to be the cool hip guy, but if you're selling a product to a culture, just look the part. Like look the part. Look like you are actually a part of it. There was nobody of color in that meeting except for me. And I'm like, this is the lifestyle department whose thing is you're the cool aspect of the brand, and nobody's in here. And I'm not saying you're cool because you're black or you're Latino or you're Asian, but it's all the same person, suburban kid. And I was like, I don't see where cool is in this space at all. So I've been in those meetings.
What would you tell those companies to do?
Just get some more diversity. Like there should be people in the office that reflect the customer you're trying to sell to. One, it'll help you out. Like you know what I mean? Like if
Yeah.
I'm selling fishing rods, right, to the fishing community, I need to have some people who fish as a part of my team. It just makes sense. Like if you know what I mean? If I'm designing a football cleat, I need to have someone who plays football on the team so that I can make the shoe relative to their experience. So this company is selling product to an audience, but there's nobody in the audience on the team to create the product. Nobody. It was weird to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that goes back to what you said earlier about, support the company, support the brands, and organizations that are authentic, right? That are actually trying to do the right thing besides just saying the right thing. Hey, I want to ask you,
exactly.
I want to ask you one more question. I know that you're a dad. You have a son that's a young man. He just finished his freshman year of college. And so how does it feel to be the father of a young black man in America right now? And what kind of conversations are you having with your son, if you feel comfortable sharing, about what's going on, and what advice are you giving him right now?
We're having real conversations because in real life, he sees what's going on. Actually, him and his friends, his high school buddies, they were down there at the very first rally. I forget what day it was. Let's say it was the first. The very first rally that was held at not City Hall, at the state capitol. Him and his friends were there. And I told him, go, because you need to feel the energy of the people who are crying out for equality. Like you need to physically be there just so you can absorb the energy and you can hear the cries and the conversation and go. So my son's peer group is like the Benetton ad. It's a little bit of everybody. There's black and there's white, male and female. So I guess they're millennials. I guess that's the category that they're in. So they're down there. And when he came home, we had a conversation. I asked him, what did he think? And he was like, man, like it was incredible to actually be in the space and see that many different people upset about the same thing. So from his vantage point, what he liked about it is he felt like he saw it wasn't just a black thing, because the friend that picked him up to actually drive down there is his white homeboy. so he saw there's several other people other than just us arguing about the same thing, which was a point that I made at the top of the conversation. Like the difference now is we're all pissed. So he actually lived the moment and saw everybody's pissed. Like this isn't just, you could close the door if it's just, okay, black people, all they do is complain. It's just them, we're not going to pay any attention to that. But when you have his peer group, black, white, Asian, or whatnot, you have male, female, gay, straight, whatever, all these social groups together arguing the same thing. He was able to see it. So our conversation was, man, I'm glad, it's not just your dad telling you XYZ, telling you to be, pro-black. You can go down and you see why this group of people are coming together because they're like, we need to be pro-human because the way the cops are treating us, they're treating us all like crap. So I really just sat back when he got home. I just listened to him because it wasn't time for me to tell him how I felt. It was more time for me to listen to understand what he experienced.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. What else would you say about, you just talked about listening, right? So I think there's a lot of people out there saying that this is a time for people to listen. This is something that, we're trying to do as a company. We're trying to give, to share the mic, so to speak, with people to amplify their voice. What would you say about people in the opportunity for people to listen right now to what's being said?
I think in order for us to get to a point where there's going to be some real change, to your point, the actual word listening, like we have to do that. Like and I keep going back to the police because this is why we're having the conversation ultimately, because their action, they can't just live in that tunnel that they've been in, where we're the authoritator, we'll do what we want, you don't have any say. We can't do that anymore, because if we do, we're going to end up here, and we're in a space that we're at because they're not listening. Like it's like your dad who just says no. Like they can't be like that, or else we're going to be back here. So the actual art of listening, someone has to practice that. Someone on the in an authoritative space has to say, okay, man, we haven't been listening to these people this entire time, and look where it's gotten us. This can't be comfortable for them. So the act of not listening has put us in this space right here. So I keep going back to it. What you said was so simple, but so on point. Someone just has to listen. Like, these voices aren't crying just to be crying. They're crying because nobody's listening.
What do you think we can all do to make this better? Like, where do we go from here on June 11th, 2020?
I don't think there's anything that me and you can do if the hearts of the people who are in power doesn't change. To be honest, me and you can have. Remember the conversation we had when we were bike riding? We could have that conversation, which was powerful because we both learned a lot about each other. We have this conversation right here, powerful. But if the people who are in power, if their hearts don't change, then it's just us talking to each other. Right, which is great because I learned you learned me. People who are going to watch this, they learn, from the both of us. But the world won't change unless the people in power change the way that they think. Like, they have to care more than they currently do. That's a part of the science behind Black Lives Matter is, like, y'all got to care about us too. And until someone cares the same way about a black life versus a white life or whatever, we're going to be stuck. So that has to happen. Someone has to say, okay, man, we got to fix this. And part of fixing it is we have to care about those people, whoever they are, the same way we care about ourselves. Because we know how to care. We just got to care about them the same way we care about us. Until that happens, we're stuck, bro.
I hope we're not stuck, man. I really appreciate you taking some time to talk to us today. I want to ask you, is there anything else that you want to say that I didn't ask you, or just any other feelings that you have that you want to share here while we're talking?
The thing that hurts me the most out of all of what we're experiencing is the police just don't value your life when they have you in their grasp. And like, I've watched countless videos and I've seen people get treated like dogs once the police have them. And it's a sad, I mean, we really live in a police state. We think that we're free, right? And some people say, oh, I'm white, so it's easier for me. Yeah, but there's stuff, there's atrocities happening to white folks by the hands of the police too. So police reform, I've always felt like it needed to happen. Now I know it needs to happen. Until that changes, we just have the opportunity to go right back to this drama all over again. So I think a serious conversation needs to be had about police reform in the United States. There's no reason why we're in the place that we are. As far up the ladder as the United States is, we're still treating our citizens like dogs at the hands of the police. It's disgusting.
How confident are you that what's going on right now is going to lead to real, effective police reform?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I was watching a press conference with police force up in New York and just listening to. They feel like they're the victims, which is idiotic to me. I don't see it changing anytime soon.
What do you think it would take to have real police reform?
I mean, they gotta care. And I'm not saying police can't do their job. They just can't treat everybody the way they do with no get back. Like, if me and you walking down the street and we see a guy walking down the street and I punch that guy, that's an assault charge thrown in my direction. A cop comes up, talks to me and you, he feels as though I'm being disrespectful. He punches me in the face. There's nothing I can do about it for the most part. I don't care if it's on video or not. Like, that power has to be taken away from them. Like, they need to be subject to the same laws you and I are subject to. And until that happens, this conversation will never change anything because they still have the power.
Hey, I really appreciate you joining us today, Mars. Thanks for keeping it real. Thanks for being honest, and just thanks for your time, man. I want to wish you the best, and your son as well. I'm glad to hear that he's gotten out there. He's getting out there, and just thank you, man. Be safe. And look forward to talking to you again soon. Look forward to getting back on the bike with you again soon too.
We're riding this Sunday.
Okay, all right. I'm trying to get out. I'm trying to get out there with you. Yep. Hey man, be good. Stay safe. All right.
Yep.
Just want to sincerely thank Mars for joining us today for some real talk about justice and equality in America, social and racial justice. Vertical River is committed to telling meaningful stories and amplifying real voices. It's what we do as a company, and right now we're just trying to share the mic with people in our community, people of color, Black and brown people. If you like what you hear here, please share it with your friends in your network and help amplify these stories. You can find more conversations like this at our website, verticalriver.co, and on our social media channels. Stay safe, and everybody be good out there. Thank you very much.